all created in the image of God. That's one thing that drove home that he connected to the Jewish people in the 1960s. It was not only miserably tough for African Americans to trying to live in a free society, supposedly in the United States of America. Hashem, welcome once again to my home for another exciting Torah Watchman edition, only available on the ben-Emmett YouTube channel. Please click subscribe, like, and personal notify, and comment. Yes, listen, today is Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Memorial Day in the United States. It's the third week, I believe, third week of January of every year. It's a federal holiday. It's considered floating holiday. A lot of employers, most states recognize this, not germane. But anyway, I just want to take this time as an Orthodox Jew to say what I think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, as far as how it impacts Jews of today, namely, the nation of Israel. First of all, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., believe it or not, on his mother's side, his grandfather converted to Judaism. Did you know that? So technically, legally, his mother was born Jewish from that union, from his family. He came from a mixed family, multiracial family. Of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Southern Baptist-like pastor. He was most notably known for the 1964 Civil Rights Act. A year before that, a 1,000-man march, nonviolent, on Washington, D.C., got a lot of people's attention for civil rights, okay? Civil rights is defined by the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It was enacted by Congress a year after that 1,000-man march on D.C. You remember, I have a dream. Well, he's talking about racial equality across the board. Not just the really elite and wealthy, but those people that are homeless in the street too. Drug addicts, mentally retarded people that are just down on their luck, people sleeping underneath a bridge, whoever your stature is in life, we're all created in the image of God. That's one thing that drove home that he connected to the Jewish people in the 1960s. It was not only miserably tough for African Americans to trying to live in a free society, supposedly in the United States of America, where a little black girl could not use the same water fountain that was used by white children. During that time, I grew up in the very final stages of segregation in the state of Louisiana. Literally, well, one week I was on a school bus. I remember it like today. I was about 5 years old at that time. So it was about 1970. Is that one week, all the students on the school bus was white. And a couple of weeks after that, they mixed white and black together. That created a lot of hardship. I want to go on the record right now. My father, I just called him today, and I thanked him so much for what he did. He was a fighter for all civil rights of all children, despite the color of their face, race, gender, creed, ethnicity, religion, religious preference, or whatever. He was called some of the most filthy names I ever heard as a child. He even had death threats. Yes, he did. For what he was standing up, he was simply in the public educational system of Northern Louisiana. Some white parents could not deal with the fact that their white children were actually sitting in the same classroom with black children. It was that bad during that time. Go to Boardwalk Park, in Brooklyn, New York. They had race riots there. They had, and I'm talking about Jewish race riots, in which Jews were subject to so much anti-Semitism. Long story short, I have some video play, some speeches and things like that I want to add to this video later on when I stop running my mouth. I just want to point out that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he did, when Israel was going through a really crisis event, in Arab Israel leading up to 1964 Six Days War, he really did a lot for solidarity for American Jews. He helped, simply said Zionism. It's not. It's not being a white supremacist. There's nothing wrong with it. It's nationality and from Israel, just like we're patriotism refers to Americans living in the United States who are proud of their flag and proud of their Constitution. Novel idea, right? Unfortunately, individuals like Malcolm X, he was assassinated, unfortunately, in 1965, but leading up 1963, in that time frame, he ran into pretty much on a brick wall with MLK, because MLK advocated civil disobedience, but not violent, non-violent protesting, okay? This is protecting the Constitution. Malcolm X wanted to use any means necessary, including violence, to get people's attention. He was a minister of Islam, of all things, and he was a proponent for black nationalism. MLK was totally against that. He wanted to focus on the character inside of a nefesh, of the soul of a person's heart and mind, not the color of their face. You cannot judge this Jew by the color of my face. You would not believe if I told you on my father's side, I trace his ancestry to Kenya of all places, okay? That's the last thing you would guess about this red-haired Caucasian Jew, right? All kidding aside. Anyway, since our time is short, I just want to thank you again. Listen, this is Martin Luther King Jr. We remember him in blessed memory. In many circles, we considered him born as a Jew. He was an evangelical Christian pastor. But at that time, there was a great affinity among African Americans and the Jewish people. We had solidarity. We had common frames of reference. We were slaves in Egypt. And then, of course, African Americans were literally brought here in chains. He talked about the Soviet Jews. My wife is a Soviet Jew, and our whole family in 1992 came to this country. He talked about the hardship of anti-Semitism in that time. He could identify with all of that. So anyway, thank you. The video is going to start real soon, the next segment. Have a wonderful day. Remember, Martin Luther King Jr. Listen, this is an unofficial Jewish holiday. Baruch Hashem.
Out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. Yeah. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
Israel must express that has the right to exist as one of the great outposts of democracy in the world.
My Jewish brothers and sisters said to me amid anti-Semitism in Israel, "We don't need your support. We have enough Jewish powers to deal with it ourselves. I would still take a stand against anti-Semitism because it's wrong, it's unjust, and it's evil." And my Catholic brothers and sisters said to me, "Bigotry toward Catholics, you don't need your support in this, because we have enough Catholic power to deal with it
I would still take a stand against bigotry toward Catholics because it is wrong, it is evil, and it is unjust. I was the rabbi of the Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime. I learned many things. The most important thing that I learned in my life, and under those tragic circumstances, is that bigotry and hatred are not the most urgent problems. The most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence. A great people which have created a great civilization has become a nation of silent onlookers. They remained silent in the face of hate, in the face of brutality, and in the face of mass murder. Perhaps if there had been broad understanding of the uses of nonviolent direct action in Germany, when Hitler was rising and consolidating his power, the brutal extermination of 6 million Jews and millions of other war dead might have been averted, and Germany might never have become totalitarian. Protestants and Catholics had engaged in nonviolent direct action, had made the oppression of the Jews their own oppression, and had come into the streets beside the Jews to scrub the sidewalks, and had Gentiles worn the stigmatizing yellow armbands by the millions. A unique form of mass resistance to the Nazi regime might have developed. I'm fully aware of the terror, the intimidation, brutality, and the force the fascists were so quick to use. But I'm also aware that in the South today, some races of the same mentality have been curbed in their resistance to nonviolent action when practiced on a mass scale. Today, people all over the world should be engaging in mass action to protest anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union. There is a dangerous silence today which unintentionally encourages evil to flourish. Was Albert Einstein right when he said, "The world is in greater peril from those who tolerate evil than from those who actively commit it"? Not President Kennedy warned that those who do nothing are inviting shame as well as violence. Will the nation ever forget the searing impact of Rabbi Joachim Prince's admonition as he spoke at the March on Washington in 1963? When I was the rabbi of the Jewish community in Berlin under the Hitler regime, I learned many things. The most important thing that I learned in my life and under tragic circumstances is that bigotry and hatred are not the most urgent problems. The most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence. A great people which have created a great civilization have become a nation of silent onlookers. They remain silent in the face of hate, in the face of brutality, and in the face of mass murder.
If you've enjoyed this program, please click like and subscribe.